Although our truck company is primarily responsible for vertical ventilation at residential fires, every engine company should also be able to perform this task. If our truck is delayed to a fire or unavailable, an engine company will likely be performing truck duties, including vertical ventilation. This training video will cover peaked roof ventilation at residential structure fires. This video is no substitute for hands-on practice, so get out to the training field with your companies and practice these steps on our roof simulators. Vertical ventilation is still one of the best methods of removing smoke and heat from a structure that's on fire. This smoke and heat is lifted off any victims who may be inside, as well as our interior fire tech and search crews, making their job much easier. Operating above the fire on a roof is one of the most dangerous areas on the fire ground. Your goal should be to quickly identify the location you want to cut and get on and off the roof quickly. Choosing the right spot to cut starts on the ground before you ever set foot on the roof. Carefully size up the fire and try to determine its location. We want to cut our hole at the highest point possible directly over the fire area. Sizing up the building and determining the location of the fire while on the ground will make this much easier. Depending on conditions, there may be too much smoke coming out of the entire building to determine an exact fire location. In this case, cutting the hole at the highest point possible in the center of the building is best. Always keep in mind your wind direction when choosing your spot. You don't want to cut a vent hole where wind is blowing against it. This will blow all the heat and smoke back down inside the building, having the opposite effect of what we are trying to accomplish. Your ability to safely access the area will also be a factor in getting a hole in the spot you've chosen. Due to the fire burning underneath you or construction of the building, you may not be able to safely access the best spot for ventilation. Roof pitch will also determine if you can safely walk and work on the roof. The bucket of the tower ladder or roof ladder are possible options if a roof is unsafe to work from. In any case, always make sure you're sounding the roof beginning before you ever step off the ladder. Always sound the roof in front of you as you are walking to the spot you have chosen. Use inspection holes made every few feet to judge conditions underneath you. The quickest way to make an inspection hole is to use the pick end of a pickhead axe and drive it through the roof decking. Quickly prying up on the handle in a can opener motion will create a small hole in the decking where you can see the smoke or fire conditions underneath you. When walking on the roof, the safest way to move is at an angle instead of straight up or across. Remember that valleys, ridges, and hip rafters are the strongest parts of the roof, and you should use these areas if possible to move around the roof. For ventilation on a normal peaked roof, we need at least 3 tools besides a ladder. A chainsaw, pickhead axe, and trash hook are our tools of choice for the job. The chainsaw, of course, is used to make your cuts through the shingles and roof decking, while the pickhead axe is used to make inspection holes while you're moving on the roof. The axe is also there as a backup in case there's a problem with the saw. The trash hook is preferred for residential roofs for several reasons. First, its large surface area on the hook end allows you to sound the roof better than a smaller hook would. Additionally, this larger end makes louvering or pulling the roof decking easier. The trash hook is also usually longer than our traditional 6 or 8 foot hook, providing better reach for the firefighter who is pushing down the ceiling after cutting a ventilation hole. This is helpful when there's a large attic space between the point you're cutting and the ceiling below. A 6-foot pipe pole may not reach where the trash hook can. When you're using a trash hook to punch through the ceiling below, the handle or butt end is used instead of the hook. The large end may get caught on wiring inside the attic or other obstructions and will be difficult to remove from the hole. The 2 firefighter ventilation team will consist of a saw firefighter and a spotter. The saw firefighter will run the chainsaw and actually make the ventilation cuts. The spotter will support the firefighter while cutting, as well as be responsible for sounding the roof and making inspection holes while moving to the cutting area. The final job of the spotter will be to louver the roof decking and punch the ceiling down inside the hole. The most important job of the spotter is to watch changing fire, smoke, and roof conditions, and to supervise the saw firefighter while cutting for any safety issues that may arise. The first cut made by the saw firefighter is the head cut across the top of the hole. This cut is used to find the first rafter and then roll the saw over the middle rafter to be used as a louver point. The saw firefighter should not bury the saw too deep into the decking because they might cut completely through a roof rafter. Rolling the saw over the rafter at a 45-degree or less angle will help to prevent this from happening. The second cut down should be made at the farthest point away from your exit off the roof. The third cut is usually the other down cut parallel to the first one. However, some prefer to make the bottom cut here so they don't have to move around the hole. Just make sure you continue to roll the rafter on the bottom cut. The final cut is then made to complete the hole. This is just one of several methods of cutting a hole. However, we have found this to be the quickest and most efficient, only requiring 4 cuts when done properly. This method also ensures that at no time the firefighter is standing inside any of his cuts. The textbook goal for a ventilation opening is to cut a 4 foot by 4 foot hole at a minimum. This method accomplishes that goal. Depending on conditions, however, or when working off a roof ladder or aerial device, a 4-foot by 4-foot hole may not be possible. As the spotter louvers and punches the hole, he should use a low profile position to avoid the heat venting from the hole, and so his balance does not allow him to fall off the roof. Take care to not lean over the open hole and use the reach of your tool if possible to keep from falling into the opening. If you have difficulty punching through the roof decking and getting it to louver, the saw firefighter likely made cuts over 2 rafters instead of 1. This may happen from time to time, but instead of beating on the roof decking with your hook, let the saw firefighter make another 1 or 2 down cuts between the rafters. This should make it easy to punch the decking and louver your cut. Once you've louvered the decking and punched the ceiling below, try if possible to drop the decking into the hole. Don't leave it lying on the roof to slide off later and possibly hit someone on the ground. Once the hole is open and punched, it's time to leave the roof quickly. Conditions are always changing, and we only want to spend the time necessary to do the job on the roof. Once it's done, it's time to leave. At most, this should only take a couple of minutes and hopefully less. If you have to extend your hole to make it larger, or you're working from a roof or aerial ladder, you can use the drop cut to extend the size of your hole. The drop cut is made by cutting between 2 rafters and making a hole that is longer down than it is wide. As you pass over seams in the plywood, the hole will open itself as the decking falls in. This is a quick way to increase the size of your opening or prevent you from having to reach too far when cutting from a ladder. All firefighters should practice handling and running our various saws. One of the problems seen in the past is with firefighters running the saw in the direction of their foot or leg because of the way they are holding the saw. Everyone should be comfortable with the position of the saw and switching hands to operate the saw. This allows you to move around the outside of the vent hole without danger of falling in. The saw should be held so it's not too close to your body, but also not too far away so you're leaning into what you're cutting. This comfort level only comes with practice. One tip given by one of our truck firefighters is to take your saw out every once in a while and just pretend you're cutting a hole in the grass outside the station. This will give you a feel for leaning over with the saw and switching hands as you move. All of our crews should be proficient in performing a vertical ventilation operation. Like any of our other skills, this is one that needs to be practiced in order for us to stay comfortable. Use the many resources available to you to practice your vertical ventilation skills. Thanks for watching.